Evening, everyone. Welcome to the hearings of the International Commission of Inquiry on Systemic Racist Police Violence Against People of African Descent in the United States. These hearings are an opportunity by which witnesses can present accounts of the unjustified killings and maimings of Black people in the United States by police officers before an international panel of human rights experts. We will now begin the hearing in the case of Momodou Sisay. My name is Priscilla Ocen. I'm a professor of law at Loyola Law School in Los Angeles, and I am the rapporteur and moderator for the hearing of Mr. Sisay's hearing. Presiding over this hearing is Commissioner Fournier of Costa Rica. We have two witnesses. The first will be attorney Abdul Jaiteh, and the second will be Ms. Diminga George, Mr. Sisay's aunt. There will be 50 minutes allocated for this hearing. Witnesses will testify, followed by questions from our commissioner, Mr. Fournier. I will make a note of passage of time. Just to keep us on time, I'll note where we are at about 30 minutes, and also again when we hit the 45-minute mark. Apologies if I have to interrupt you in order to do so. I'll try to avoid any interruptions if at all possible. Commissioner Fournier, I now present you our first witness, Abdul Jaiteh, attorney for the family of Mr. Sisay. Mr. Jaiteh, can you just confirm your name for the record?
Abdul Jaiteh.
And Mr. Jaiteh, do you attest or swear that the statements or testimony that you present to this commission today are true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Great. Please proceed with your comments.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, Commissioner Fournier. I thank all of you for participating today in what's been a very difficult past year with respect to police violence against people of African descent. I've prepared a statement that was previously submitted to the panel for their reference in the future. However, I am not conditioned to read from a prepared script. Therefore, I will speak from my heart, from what I know about the unfortunate demise of Mr. Momodou Lamin Sisay. I'm here today as counsel for the family, for the father, Mr. Lare Sisay, who is with us today, and the aunt, Miss Diminga George, and the rest of the Sisay family, the Wada family. The mother of the decedent, Mr. Momodou Lamin Sisay, is Mariam Wada. Unfortunately, she passed away many years ago. Miss Auntie Diminga essentially was the mother who raised Mr. Momodou Lamin Sisay. I apologize in advance. At some point, should I get emotional about the issues before this commission. We've come a long way with respect to fighting for racial justice in America, and it's never been an easy road. But we know the moral arc of the universe bends towards justice in the end. And I applaud the United Nations for allowing victims to come to this body and share their stories about what they've been going through. It's difficult. Oftentimes, we are not heard, people of color in our own communities. In the statement I prepared and submitted to the commission, I touched on a little bit about the history of police violence and racism against Blacks. But they are experts on that issue, and I defer to those experts, and they have done a tremendous job in documenting about what we've been through. In order to understand police racism against people of African descent, we need to know where it began. We need to know where it began. It all started way during colonial times when they started shipping Africans across the ocean to the United States. At some point, when we earned our freedom, even then, that's when they started creating police forces to chase and hunt Black people down, arrest, capture, or kill them. That's where it started. That's how the police forces were structured, and they're there to protect property. And they considered slaves as property, they're chattel, and they will chase, hunt them down, and kill them. That's where it started. That mentality hasn't changed. If you don't believe that, just look at what happened in the Capitol on January 6th of 2021. Just look at what happened. Can you imagine if this was a group of Black Lives Matter protests approaching the Capitol? There would be hundreds, or even thousands of dead bodies on the street, and they'll be firing on them like crazy. That's the truth. So just think about it. Why do police use violence against Blacks and they don't use it against whites? You know why? Because the police, they look at the white race as one of them, and they look at the Blacks as not one of them. They're not citizens. Our Constitution is great, but there were errors in our Constitution to begin with. And there were flaws in our Constitution. They said all men are created equal. You know what? Except slaves, except Blacks. That mentality hasn't changed. Without much further ado, I'll tell you about my client's story, Mr. Momodou Lamin Sisay. Mr. Sisay is an immigrant of Gambia. He came here with his family when he was young. Similar to many, many people of African descent, including myself, who was born in Gambia, I came here in search of greener pastures, in search of education, opportunity, and prosperity. It's very sad we all do not achieve our dreams. And the system of systematic racism in America is a huge burden and obstacle for many who yearn for the American dream. And you know what? The police prey on those who are unfortunate in our society. It's rare a Black man driving a car in a suit and a tie to be pulled over, even with an expired tag. This is a true story. I've been driving for approximately 3 months now with an expired tag. I just renewed my tag. Not a single time was I pulled over, because I was driving a Jaguar and I always dress in a suit and a tie. So this is where racial profiling comes in and stereotyping. This is how Trayvon Martin got killed. He was wearing a hoodie with Skittles, eating and walking down the street, and they hunt him down and killed him because he was Black in a rich neighborhood wearing a hoodie. This commission was created, I believe at least, in light of the George Floyd murder in daylight. We've seen that. Who is it to say if George Floyd was able to flee that day, and you knew, you can rewind the tape and look and say, I think George Floyd should have fled to save his life because he would have been killed. He would be killed. If you could rewind the tape, would we all tell George Floyd, you should have fled from the police? Yes, we will all say that, but he didn't flee from the police. He obeyed to his detriment. He obeyed to his detriment. This is not new. The same for Sandra Bland, who was arrested from a traffic stop and taken to jail. And he was found dead probably a next day or a few days after he was arrested. During the time of Mr. Sisay's death, it was in the early hours of 3 a.m. in the morning. A Black man driving on the streets of Snellville, Georgia, deep in the heart of the South, where all the slavery and segregation and racism against blacks began. It may have been covered, but the racism is still there. We know the history. Early in the morning, Mr. Sisay was driving home. His only crime was being black, driving a car with an expired tag. Think about that. This was on May 29, 2020, 4 days after George Floyd was killed. We watched it on TV, we saw it. I'm sure Mr. Sisay watched it on TV. He saw what the police did to George Floyd. Officer kneeled on his neck for almost 8 minutes. And here is Mr. Sisay all in the morning, 4 days later, driving home with an expired tag, and he was pulled over by an officer. What is he supposed to think? I'm here alone in rural part of the county, and I'm alone. Do I stay, they arrest and kill me, or do I flee? This is not new. There are actually studies on this as provided in the materials from a court in Boston. Essentially, did a report and analysis from a judge saying black people flee from the police because they think that's the safest thing to do. Because if they're caught, they don't know if they will die or if they'll be alive. But let's take a step back for a moment. There's something called in the law pretextual stop. You stop someone, a police officer stops someone for something other than the reason stated. It happens every day. That's why a lot of blacks are being incarcerated for petty offenses. They pulled him over not because of just the tag. The tag is pretext for them to use to see what else they can find in the car. That's why they did it. Okay? We have laws in the books that police cannot act on a hunch. The case is called Terry. They cannot act on a hunch. They have to have probable cause that someone has committed a crime or a criminal activity is about to occur. A license plate tag violation and expired tag is not a criminal offense. It's not a criminal offense. Mr. Sisay, what he thought is best for him at the time, for fear of his life, fled from the police. That's what led to what happened later. The officer performed a pit maneuver on the vehicle twice. And pit maneuvers, the studies have shown, they can be deadly. And you can only use deadly force when it's absolutely necessary. Mr. Sisay's vehicle came to a stop somewhere in the bushes after it was disabled by the second pit maneuver. Most of the vehicle, from the back to the midsection of the vehicle, was all covered. You can only see the front of the vehicle hanging outside the bushes. He was surrounded. I don't know how many vehicles, but I've heard a lot of vehicles surrounding him. We don't know how many because you know why? That's another tactic of law enforcement. They don't share the evidence. They don't disclose all the evidence without a court order. The only time they will share the evidence of what took place, if there's a video from the public and they are afraid that the narrative in the public is against them, that's the only time they will share their own version of the story through their own evidence videos for the public to see. But rarely law enforcement will share the evidence when they could be culpable for a crime. While the vehicle was surrounded and was not able to escape or go anywhere, allegedly, Mr. Sisay pointed a gun at the officer. That's when the officer started firing. However, we also know there were about 3 stages of firing. The first set of firing didn't kill Mr. Sisay. They stopped. And there's a video online, which I will share with the commission later. One of the officers from, I believe, Gwinnett County Sheriff said, they saw Mr. Sisay moving around in the car, at which point they called the SWAT team to come. You would think now someone is wounded and he's laying down. Now it's time to cease all fire, approach the vehicle slowly, and render aid, maybe call an ambulance to save his life. But no, that didn't happen. They went on a second round of shooting and a third round of shooting until they finished them. That is cruel and unusual punishment. That is excessive, unnecessary, and unreasonable. I have the, if you will allow me, we shared a copy of the vehicle riddled with bullet holes, which appears to be over 100 bullets fired on the vehicle. You guys remember Amadou Diallo in New York, over 42 rounds were fired on him. You know why? Because he was reaching for his wallet. They thought he had a gun, allegedly. They were even in the wrong apartment. In this case, we have information that Mr. Sisay was talking to his girlfriend. He said, "I'm being surrounded. It looks like they're going to kill me." We know the police took cell phones in the past in other cases as guns, and they shoot and killed the suspect. What if in this case, they saw him on the cell phone and shot and killed him thinking it was a gun? I will admit I haven't seen the evidence because none has been released so far with respect to the forensic. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation claimed they discovered a gun in the car. However, we don't know, okay, we do know it's not his gun. We don't know who the gun is registered to. And we don't know if the gun was planted. Again, what I'm saying here today is based on prior case law or prior incidents in our communities here in America. In Baltimore, Maryland, it happened. The police would plant the evidence in the vehicle. Some of those officers later were fired. I'm not saying that's what happened here. What I'm saying is, if you're clean, come clean and disclose the evidence. There's nothing you need to hide. However, to make matters worse, when you're surrounded, those who watched the shooting video relate information to me. This will all come out later. An officer was trying to grab a non-lethal weapon from the trunk of his vehicle so they could use that instead of the automatic firearms that they had. Instead of using a non-lethal force to neutralize the suspect, they didn't give him a chance, and that's on video. Someone was trying to put together a non-lethal weapon, which that you should use non-lethal force first before you resort to automatic weapons. They used automatic weapons in this case. They didn't give the other officer an opportunity to use the non-lethal force. That was a violation of protocol. But we wouldn't get here if he was not racially profiled. 3 in the morning, a black guy driving a car with expired tag. One of the ladies who got killed in Ohio, he was pulled over for an unsafe lane change. Come on. We can't get killed for small traffic offenses. Unsafe lane change, expired tag. or we are arrested. They thought we were reaching for our wallet. Philando Castile of Minnesota. I'm not saying all police officers are racist, but the first solution to a problem is to admit that it exists. And then you can fashion remedy or solutions to the problem. Our white counterparts have worked really hard alongside us fighting for justice for Black America. We can't do it alone. We need them. We need the good ones. The problem is additional problems which I've previously explained. Our military has been infiltrated by white supremacists. And when they leave the military, guess where they go? They join the police force. They join white supremacists joining the police force. So what's the solution? What is the way forward? We can't bring Mr. Sisay back. He's dead. We can't bring him back. But what can we do to prevent more brown and Black people getting killed at the hands of law enforcement? One, we need to rethink law enforcement in general. We need to start thinking, do you really need a police officer when teenage girls are at the pool having an argument? Do you really need police officers with gun SWAT teams coming to the pool? No, we don't need them. If a property manager and someone at the pool are engaged in an argument, do you need to send armed police officers? No, it's a civil dispute. I came to the pool because as a Black woman, I'm here at the pool with my kids because I'm a resident. Why call the police? Property manager can go check the records to see if the name is in the records that this Black woman is a resident or not. So we need to rethink the use of the police. And the way to do that, we need help from the United Nations and Congress. We need to scale it back. We need them in certain situations, but not in all situations. And we have to be careful about the Karens out there, we know them, who know the law enforcement do not treat Blacks fairly, and they're quick to call the police on the Black guy. For example, Mr. Cooper in the park in New York while he was bird watching. And another, coincidentally, a Miss Cooper, a white female, called the police. I want to tell the police there's a Black guy here threatening my life. It was all on video and it was a lie. She wasn't threatening her life. So when these types of calls happen, we need to teach law enforcement to see it for what it is. The intent is to use law enforcement in the advantage of the white race to suppress or kill us. So, but in order to make it possible, we need to make sure police have the proper training. We have armed police and non-armed police. In Europe, they have armed police and non-armed police in UK. In certain situations, the unarmed police officers will go. For example, someone with mental health. You send the unarmed police officer. If they can handle the situation, then they will figure out what the next step should be. We need to de-escalate situations. In Mr. Momodou Lamin Sisay's case, the police officer, according to those who watched the video of the shooting, the police officer acted erratically, unprofessional, and he was unprovoked. He was bent on hunting and killing Mr. Sisay. That's what he did. We need to make sure we don't escalate traffic stops into a high-speed chase. If someone is fleeing from committing a dangerous felony, robbing a bank, shooting a spouse from a domestic violence situation, for example, and they're fleeing from the police or fleeing from the scene of the crime. Yes, hunt them down all you want, all you can, as long as you don't risk the public, and apprehend them. But you do a pit maneuver on me because my tag expired, because I'm fleeing from you and I'm afraid of my life for fear that you would kill me if I stay at the scene. It's 3 in the morning and I'm alone, and it's my word against their word. They're gonna believe the police. That's how it's been. We need bolder, more grand approaches to fix this problem, because we can't afford more people getting killed. And nothing bigger than ending qualified immunity. The topic I just covered both demilitarizing the police and reducing the functions of the police. Okay? They can actually be peacemakers. I heard another witness testify today about how to make sure in the recruiting the white supremacists don't infiltrate the force. That's difficult, but guess what? What if they all join the force and you don't deploy them when people call 911? Don't deploy them with guns. Tell them, no, we need unarmed police officers. Go talk to them, see what's going on. But in every little phone call, they show up with their machine guns and their SWAT teams, and they escalate the situation, and they are poorly trained. If you just came from Iraq, you joined the police force, and someone is mentally ill, and you're called to that situation, you're probably suffering from PTSD. How are you going to handle that situation? I don't want you to think of Mr. Sisay's case in isolation. If you put the pieces together, the bigger picture is, why does this keep happening? And the only conclusion is race. Is systemic racism against people of African descent and Hispanics as well. That's why it's happening. If a black man entered a white church and killed 9 white people, he's not gonna get out alive. Come on, we know that. But the opposite is what happened in South Carolina. They arrested him, they put bulletproof vest on him, and they went to Burger King and bought him food. You think a black guy will get that, who just killed 9 white worshippers in a church? That will never happen. I will yield the rest of my time for Ms. Diminga George to share with you who is Mr. Momodou Lamin Sisay.
Thank you.
Qualified immunity is in one of my presentations about what we can do. There's a case heading to the Supreme Court. I believe it's sponsored by the Cato Institute right now in an effort to end qualified immunity. Qualified immunity in short means you can prove the police violated my constitutional right of the 4th Amendment against illegal search and seizure, but the police get the benefit to work free because he acted objectively, his conduct was objectively reasonable. That's not in the law. The Supreme Court made that up. They say you're entitled to qualified immunity if another officer in similar situation thinks the officer's conduct is objectively reasonable.
Mr. Jaiteh, I'm going to interject here because we are at about 30 minutes in and we have 20 minutes remaining in the hearing. And as you said, I think, first of all, thank you very much for your powerful summation of the horrible events that led to the death of Mr. Sisay, the brutality and the outright misconduct and the lack of humanity. So I want to thank you for that. Ms. George, I would like to present to you for testimony, Mr. Fournier, our commissioner. I'd like to present to you our second witness, Ms. George. Ms. George, before you testify, let me just ask you to confirm your name for the record, please.
She's on mute.
You'll want to unmute. You're still muted, Ms. George?
Mute. Oh,
yes, there you are.
You
okay.
hearing me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the panel. My name is
just a moment. So can you confirm your name, please? Yes, go ahead.
Diminga, Diminga, and George is the last name, George.
Thank you, Ms. George. And Ms. George, can you attest or swear that the testimony that you will provide to this commission is true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. George. Please proceed.
Well, I'm the sister of Mariam Wada, known as Auntie. Auntie Ma'am is the mother of Momodou Lamin Sisay. Momodou Lamin was the firstborn of my sister. They came into New York, to America when he was 9 years old, him and the brother. All those years they've been together with their mom, go to school, practically all and adulthood was in Atlanta. What I know about Momodou, he was very respectful. He was very respectful. He wouldn't even look while talking to him. He was a good boy, very humble. He was pious. I never heard him fight with anybody or had a rout with nobody. The only thing I know, take care of his brothers, make sure they're okay, and be respectful to elders. It's very sad, very, very sad. He was barely 40 when his life got short, barely 40. He just turned 40 in November of this year, last year, 20. Why? Why all the time is the young boys getting killed? I couldn't answer it. I don't live in Atlanta. I live in Orlando. The only thing I know was your sister's son was shot. What do you mean was shot? Who shot him and why? He don't trouble nobody. He's not a violent person. I was so nervous that day, I don't even know where to turn, left or right. Confused. I wasn't expecting him in that format. As time goes on, I'm questioning myself. What happened? How did it happen? Who was there? I wasn't there. Only God knows. No answers. We don't have no answers as yet. We're still searching. I thought our police supposed to care for us. Even though something went wrong. Question. Ask questions. And if you don't know the answer, at least violence is no good. Because the moment they ask question with force, what is the next is they kill them. I can understand the situation up till now. If I tell you I'm not confused, I'm lying. Because I don't have answers. I do not have this thing been going on and on and on and on and on. To what I know, Momodou Lamin is not a violent person. You can even talk to him because he don't look at you through your eyes. Anybody you ask and who knows him very well, the only thing they could tell you is a respectful person, very humble, religious, and you wouldn't even hear him. He's not a talkative. So my question is, why? I don't understand. I do not understand. Up till today, I'm still emotional even talking about him. He was barely 40. His life got shot just like that. I hope there will be a justice. I hope there will be justice. The good Lord we serve will decide. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. George, and our sincerest and deepest condolences to you and to the rest of your family. I understand Mr. Sisay's father is watching this hearing, and I want to extend condolences to Mr. Sisay as well on the loss of your son. We hope that this process, this hearing, will be a part of that effort to seek justice on behalf of your family.
I hope so. I hope justice will prevail, because it's too much. It's too much to our young kids. You being innocent, going about your business. They have to do something to trigger you, or whatever they want to do, they do. It's unjust.
It absolutely is.
Who is here to protect us? Who will protect us? These are the people we believe that they're going to be beside us to protect us.
The father may have a few words to say, Professor Ocen, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Mr. Sisay, I'd like to invite you, if you would like, and you don't have to, but if you would like to say a few words, we would open the space for you to do so.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk about our grief. I don't understand how a group of police officers with automatic weapons can pump more than 200 bullets in a car that is stationary. I don't see how anybody can make me understand that. The young man, as the aunt said, is very pious, very religious, has never had any issues with the law, and they just killed him like that. Because he's a single black person in a dark, small street in Snellville. No evidence. As Lawyer Jaiteh said, we've been pushing and pulling for them to give us something to look at. They are refusing. It's like You just hunt down an animal, kill it, and that's it. The Georgia Bureau of Investigations did not give us anything to go by. The DA's office hasn't given us anything to go by. We know, or we are told, the police had body cameras on them, but we have not had access to any of that. And this is the United States of America, 21st century United States of America, where you can kill a human being, sit on the evidence with impunity, and the police officers are just going about doing their business. I sit here sometimes, I get very emotional. A, for losing my son. B, for the injustice that took place in losing him. And 3, a system that has closed ranks and is refusing to hear what we have to say. That system is there. I lived in Georgia, I lived in that area. I know how it is. And honestly, if anybody tells me these police officers, including the district attorney's office, is going to release this evidence for us to see, I'll tell you, you're kidding. They're not gonna do it. Unless, of course, if the lawyers decide to take certain legal measures for them to release the evidence that they have. But otherwise, as far as I'm concerned, these police officers, the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office, Snellville Police, they don't give a hoot about what happened to my boy. They don't care. And I hope they understand that they have caused a lot of grief in this family. It's a huge family. Anybody who knows my family, who knows his mother's family, you know it's a huge family. And we are all collectively grieving because we have no understanding of why he had to die the way he died. And we have no trust in the jurisdictional authorities to do the right thing by us, by him. So we go on plugging day by day until something happens. I don't have any confidence in the notion that we can get justice. I have absolutely no reason to believe that could happen to us. Because I lived in Georgia. I lived in the Atlanta area. I know the area that this shooting took place. It's what you would describe as a redneck zone. We were in college, we used to call that, don't go to the redneck zone. But hey, this is the 21st century. These things are not supposed to happen, especially in a country that is touted to be a beacon of democracy and justice globally. As far as I'm concerned, the moral authority is lost. America has lost its moral authority by virtue of the fact that defenseless Black men and women are being killed.
That's absolutely right.
And they are being killed with impunity. So what moral authority do you have to preach to us in the third world that we should espouse democracy, rule of law, and justice for all? America has lost it. And honestly, the 4 years of President Trump has just exacerbated it. The genie is now out of the bottle, and people are going to be killed and are dying because of the color of their skin.
Mr. Sisay, I would like to, we have about 5 minutes left. And I just want to, again, thank you for your testimony and your advocacy, both you and Ms. George, for your son. We just have a few minutes, but I want to invite Commissioner Fournier, if he has any questions, to ask maybe one or two before we conclude for the evening. I know it's late, especially for those of you on the East Coast. So I'll turn it to you, Commissioner.
Is he going to continue?
No, we're waiting for your questions.
No, I just thank you for giving me the opportunity to say something.
All right. Ms. George, Mr. Sisay, please receive our sympathy on your grieving for the loss of the dear one. And we are trying to attract international attention to your son's case, your nephew's case, in order to try to obtain justice. We're doing our best. We can't assure you that we will serve justice, but we are trying of our best. So please receive our condolences.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, just a couple of fast questions. Was Mr. Momodou fluent in English, or did he speak Karakunda, the language, the main language in Gambia?
I beg your pardon. I didn't hear that. Could you say that
Does he
again?
speak English?
He spoke English.
He spoke English. He spoke little, he spoke our language, but not that correct. But he spoke English most of the time.
All right, so the police can't say that he didn't understand it.
He didn't understand what?
No, the police cannot say that.
Did the police speak to him? Did they try to speak to him or explain to him why were they stopping him?
Well, I live in Orlando, as I say. I live in Atlanta. When the incident happened, they called me. By that time, I was in Orlando. The time I went to Atlanta, he was dead.
Commissioner Fournier,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me. What happened and what went down, I wasn't there. It's only God that's the witness.
Were there any witnesses at all?
I do not know. Like I say, I don't live there. By the time I went to Atlanta, when my nephew come and pick me up.
Attorney Jaiteh?
Yes, may I come in? Thank you, Your Honor. Based on our investigation so far, we do not have any witnesses. We hired a private investigator to canvass the neighborhood to see if there's anyone by chance recorded the event. We knocked on doors in the neighborhood. Nobody saw it. This is cold-blooded murder early in the morning at 3 o'clock when nobody is around. And that begs the question, why a high-speed chase when the public is not in danger in any way, shape, or form? We believe
Were they wearing the body camera?
Yes, they were all wearing body cameras. However, we've learned that one of the body cameras, according to one of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation officers who I met with personally in his office, he informed me that one of the body cameras they were trying to operate and they couldn't operate it, and it has a recording on it. Okay, does this sound familiar? Whereby law enforcement may find a way to say a particular evidence is lost, destroyed, or they can't operate it. So they were body cameras, Your Honor, yes.
So you haven't been able to obtain the videos?
No, they hide under disguise of the law that as long as there's an ongoing investigation, there is a criminal investigation going on to determine whether to charge the officers with any crime, Therefore, they cannot release the evidence because the investigation is ongoing. This is an old tactic in the books in which law enforcement, behind the cloak of investigation, will hide the evidence. Before you know it, the evidence is gone. So we have no faith in them. However, we do have plans in place to file suit and subpoena the records.
Have you been able to find out how many officers were there that night?
We have a list of,
You have their names already?
we have the names of the officers who responded. Not all of them participated in the shooting, but there are at least over 100 of them.
100 policemen
At least 100 police officers, yes.
present that night.
Give me a second, let me pull out the sheet. I have it here. Ashley, are you here? Okay, so let me see. I know we're running against time. A quick count here. First page, I have about 20, about 30 that we were able to identify in my sheet right now. However, we believe at least 100 officers responded because you have the Gwinnett County Sheriff, you have the Snellville Police Department, and you have the Atlanta Police Department responded. Depending on, at least we know Gwinnett County and Snellville participated in the shooting. The other agencies who came conducted peripheral investigations regarding who owned the car and things like that. But I believe at least 100 officers responded.
I was informed.
Commissioner,
Sorry,
going to
the last question.
interject. This will be the last question. Thank you.
Yes. I was informed that one of the officers crashed Mr. Momodou's car with the police car. But now I hear that there were over 200 shots on his car.
Well, I think we have a time constraint, but I can share, we're estimating here about the amount of shots fired based on the photograph of the vehicle, because the vehicle is tagged with bullet holes. Each bullet hole is tagged. So if Professor Ocen will allow me, I can try to share it on the screen for everyone to see the photo of the vehicle, which was part of my present day. So based on the photograph we're looking at, we're estimating a lot of shots were fired. I guess it's subjective with respect to me looking at it. I think at least over 100 was fired. Mr. Sisay thinking maybe over 200 was fired. But remember, these are machine guns, automatic rifles. They can fire a lot of rounds really quickly. So there is the possibility it probably exceeded at least 100. And that's a cruel and unusual and excessive use of force under the United States Constitution, the 8th Amendment and the 14th Amendment of Equal Protection. They killed him like a dog. It's unacceptable.
And so, Mr. Jaiteh, just to be clear, they used the pit maneuver to
I'm sorry, yes. So, Commissioner Fournier, yes, they crashed their vehicle into Mr. Sisay's vehicle twice. The first crash, we call it position intervention maneuver, which is abbreviated as PIT, P-I-T for short, as a pit maneuver. So they crashed it the first time and spun the vehicle around. They crashed it the second time and pushed it into the bushes, and it was almost at the edge of a ledge and about to fall off. And there was nowhere for it to go. It was stuck, trapped, neutralized. There was absolutely no need for the additional use of force. They could have called, again, they could have called people who specialize in, let's say, negotiating crisis situations, for example, if they believe it was a crisis. But remember, we blacks don't get that benefit. If a white guy or a white suspect, they do get that benefit. They will calm the situation, arrest them, give them water, bring them food. We don't get that benefit.
Is there any recording of his conversation with the girlfriend?
I'm still trying to, the girlfriend is traumatized. One of the younger brothers has been traumatized, is not even able to live by himself anymore. We are trying to get the information from the girlfriend. She did leave the call on during the shooting, but I don't know if she recorded it. But what we know, he told her, I'm surrounded by a lot of officers. I think they're going to kill me.
Yes. That will be very important.
You will try to get it. Thank you, Honor.
So we, unfortunately, we will have to stop there. I know there's much more we could discuss in this deeply, deeply troubling murder of Momodou Sisay. I want to thank our witnesses, Mr. Jaiteh, Mr. Sisay, the father of Momodou Sisay, and Miss George, the aunt of Mr. Momodou Sisay. We want to thank all of you for your powerful testimony and witness on behalf of your son and your nephew and friend. And I want to thank especially Mr. Commissioner Fournier for his time and attention and his very important questions about each of the cases that were heard today. And with that, I will conclude this hearing about the murder of Mr. Momodou Sisay. The hearings of the International Commission of Inquiry will resume tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time with the case of Casey Goodson. Goodson. So for those of you who are interested, please tune in tomorrow when our hearings will resume. Again, with that, we will conclude this evening's hearings. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Professor Chen. Thank you, everyone.